Hey guys, just a quick video. One to let you know that I'm doing alright. I haven't posted any videos in a while. I've been busy with other things in my life. But I couldn't resist this. The price was right and it was local to me, so I just picked myself up another Philco Predicta. This is the Siesta model. Actually, I already have this identical model with the same gold finish. But like I said, it's local and it's a very reasonable price. And in spite of the filth, it's actually in pretty good condition. It's got all the knobs, which can be quite hard to find and quite expensive when you do, except for the clock hands, which are very often missing. And the broken off little fork thing there is also a very common problem. In my other Siesta, both of these are broken off completely. This one at least has the other little fork end on it. Focus. Yeah, it's got some cracks down here, and actually the only real issue that bothers me at all is the screen's got a couple cracks. One down there and one up here. But hey, it's also got the original antenna, which are almost always missing. Little ends broken off, but that's alright. I'm just glad it's here. Also very expensive, if you can even find one. And it's filthy, but that doesn't bother me at all because all of this nicotine and tar typically does a pretty good job preserving what's underneath. So this should just clean right off. End caps are missing, but I do have some replacements. I got that'll pop right on. They're chrome and not brass, but they fit perfectly. It's also got the back. I have not seen inside. I'm just at work in the parking lot right now, so delve into that a bit later. The guy I got it from was a thrift store resale shop. He said he got it from a storage locker. One that was foreclosed on, like you guys may have seen in Storage Wars. I think that's where he got basically all the stuff that he sells. So I just grabbed a little 91% isopropyl alcohol, did a little test cleaning, and the stuff is coming off no problem. I figured this side would clean up real nice. So that is what the color of plastic top will look like once I'm all done. After I clean it off, go over with some Novus polish. And I did a little down here. That looks like, oh yeah, it's coming off. And that leaves the surface. I started to take a little bit of a closer look at it, and there does appear to be some corrosion, like along the edge here. So I may end up repainting it at some point. Okay, I just removed a few screws that were holding the back on. Now I just need to lift it over this little clock mechanism shaft here. And there we go. And as I was hoping, in spite of the dirt, this is intact and looks to be in pretty good shape. I just see a little bit of evidence of servicing. Looks like that is a new cap there that was installed from the top side. Otherwise it would have been seated down closer to the board. It's all there. There's the tuner, clock mechanism, power transformer, flyback box. Oh, screws out of that so I can lift it up. Peek inside. Flyback's on your side of this, so I can't really see it, but there's a high voltage rectifier. So, you know, if the seller had spent 15 minutes with some Windex and a rag, he probably could have gotten more money for it. But on the other hand, I can respect his decision not to. After all, you watch shows like Antiques Roadshow and they're always telling people never touch the old finish, never clean it up, never polish it, you take the value off. And plus, I wouldn't have gotten as good a deal, so I'm not going to complain about that. So I am going to proceed to do a little bit more cleaning, and let's see how presentable I can make this thing. I'm slowly making progress with the cleaning. Now check this out on the metal cabinet. At first I thought I was kind of chipping the paint off down here, but no, that's actually the dirt and grime that's coming off, and underneath is the actual gold paint. Which looks to be in pretty good shape, but I think there is corrosion along the very edge here. At least it feels rough. What I'm going to do is clean it up as best I can and then use some automotive products like some Meguiar Scratch X or Swirl Remover to go over this, see how nice I can make it looking. I did a little more in this test area, and slowly it's looking better and better, but I do think it will need to get repainted. Now I want to move on to this, clean this up a bit, and show you guys what that clock mechanism looks like. Channel fine tuning, just pull off the front, take out this Phillips screw, and then this whole thing comes out. The clock and channel indicators are in remarkably good condition. Underneath that nasty cover, cleaned a little bit out of the center, so it's a little more transparent now. Unfortunately, there were gold numbers painted on the top, as were the modes. Still make out auto and alarm. But if I clean this, it's going to remove what traces are left of those, unfortunately. I guess it says 0 to 120 on the right. It's for the timer. And this gold trimmer on the outside is kind of fading away. It's like really thin metal, maybe vacuum deposited on the plastic. I'm not sure what kind of technology they had in 1960 that could have made an effect like that. I suppose I could use modern metallic paint and maybe get some decals for the numbers, and I'd probably have to get custom decals made for the mode stuff. For sure it needs to get cleaned. Now how about we check that CRT? First thing I noticed on the CRT cover is that all the original screws are gone, 2 are missing entirely, and 2 have been replaced, and they don't even match each other, so obviously somebody's been tinkering around in there, so who knows what we'll find. Alright, well I can't tell a whole lot right away. What I thought I might see is a sticker indicating that it had been replaced. But I'm not sure. The reason I need to know is if it's got the original, it's going to be a lower voltage 2.68 volt filament. If it's been replaced, it might be 6.3 volts. So I'll just assume it's 2.68 and see what we get. So I will get my Syncor hooked up and give it a whirl. Okay, let's give this a shot. First I gotta set the filament. Get it to about 2.5 volts. Well, experience tells me that there's a load dragging this thing down, so that's a good sign. It's just a shade over 2.5 volts. And yeah, I can see a filament glow. Cool. No shorts, no shorts. No cutoff control. And no emissions. I'll let this sit for a while. Still could very well have the wrong filament. So how can I figure it out? Well, couple ways. One, if I knew how bright it should be, I could just visually tell if it's 2.68 or 6.3, or I can put an ammeter, an AC ammeter, or maybe this uses DC. I've heard various things. Some models use DC, some use AC. I think this might use DC for the filament voltage. In which case I need to put a DC ammeter in series with the filament, which is the safest way to do it, of course. I also want to make sure that I've got a good connection here. I'm going to use a universal adapter because I do not have the right adapter for this particular CRT. It's missing from my tester. Seemed like having this on protected the pins from getting too gooed up. But no, I still got nothing. I'm inclined to think that this is a higher voltage, picture 2. So I'm going to go grab an ammeter so I can verify one way or the other. Alright, I got my trusty Philco 27 in series with filament. And it turns out this is putting out AC for the filament voltage. And I've only got about 0.35 amps at 2.5 volts, so it's definitely a 6.3 volt CRT. So I am going to increase the juice until we get about 0.6 amps. And yeah, that does look a bit more normal as far as filament brightness goes. Not quite there yet. Up a little more. When I get the current, let's see what the voltage is. It should be around 6.3 volts. Go, give or take, and yet it's right about on 6.3 volts. And it is glowing nicely. Alright, so let's see what kind of emissions we might have now. Well, the emissions are good, but the cutoff, it's not working, so let's try bumping this up a range. No cutoff control. That's not good. So, could be a bad connection. Also, if this is a replacement CRT, some of these pins might not be right, because on some of the replacements, I think you had to flip a couple of the pins around, so I might have G1 and G2 backwards. I'll do a little bit of experimenting, see if I can get some cutoff control. Sure enough, I reversed the G1 and G2 connections to pins 2 and 3. And now with the proper bias, I have cutoff control, just like I should. Put it in the black area. And emissions, not so hot, but I did turn off the filament voltage while I was screwing around. So let's get that back up. Where the current is 0.6 amps. And check that emissions and cut off again. Cool. Do a little life test. That's pretty darn respectable considering I only had to run a short time. I'm going to let it sit up a little bit longer and do that life test again. Looks like I got myself a good CRT. And since it's been replaced, that's an even more encouraging sign. And as far as all this crud goes, I mean, I don't know if this happened while the set was being used in the 60s or if this happened much later while I was sitting in somebody's office or something while they were smoking like a chimney. I figured while the CRT was cooking, I'd clean off the back cover, turned it over, and gee, could have saved myself a little bit of time. It's been wired for a 17BZ p4, which I actually haven't heard of before. But let's see, I bet it's in my tester chart. Let's see. BZ p4. Yep, 6.3 volts. And 2 and 3, whereas the DRP4 is 3 and 2. So that explains that. Cool. I just removed the safety plastic cover to clean it out, and I noticed a bit of a problem. Unfortunately, someone must have run this set for quite some time with a collapsed vertical, so there's a horizontal line burned into the face of the CRT. It's a real shame because it tests so good. Now, how visible exactly that will be when watching a broadcast image, well, we'll just have to wait and see. I do have 2 replacement CRTs in my stash. One is new old stock and one is rebuilt. I guess you could call that sort of a new old stock as well. But I'd like to avoid using them if at all possible, so we'll just have to wait and see. I've only encountered a couple of their sets that had a line burned in them this badly, and I didn't get around to restoring either of them, so I don't really know how visible that will be. I cleaned the setup enough out in the garage. I thought it was okay to bring inside. And now I want to take a look at the chassis. I'm really anxious to see what kind of condition it's in. So I just removed the CRT unit. Basically you gotta reach down inside and unplug some cables. One here, one that goes to the high voltage rectifier socket down in there, and a couple off the circuit board. And so here it is, and I can see where some of the modifications were done for this picture tube. At least I think that's what's going on here. So it looks like that one wire, I don't know if it broke or it was intentionally cut. I think it was cut. And the insulation's fraying a bit on this one wire, so I'm going to need to do a little bit of work on that wiring harness. Alright, so now with that out of the way, I'm going to pull the knobs off the front and then remove some sheet metal screws down below. And pull this chassis out. Actually, it looks like a bunch are missing. Should be sure one there, and I'm pretty sure one there. So, wow, I had not noticed that. There's really not much of anything holding this chassis in. Maybe 1 or 2 screws down here, but I think these are just on the tuner. I don't think there's anything holding this chassis in. Wow. Okay, well, I'll get those knobs off and then it should just pull right out. Yeah, I notice it's missing 1 foot, which I find really, really curious because I have another one of these sets. Actually, the exact same thing, a gold Siesta, which is also missing 1 foot. Might even be in the same position. Perhaps it was back here. Anyways, common enough. Except they are riveted on, unfortunately, so I'll have to get that out, get some new feet, and I'll use sheet metal screws or something to put feet on. There are a few other things I had to do before I could pull the chassis out. I had to remove a couple screws to take this control cluster out. Same with the control cluster at the front. And I had to disconnect the clock interlock. So the clock is down in there, and there's a relay on it that turns off power to the side. I also notice there's a wire that's kind of loose, so hopefully there's no significant damage there. So I'd like to get that mechanism work. And here we go. And well, as it appeared from my initial look at it while it was in the cabinet, I see very little evidence of work. Now, of course, it's filthy, so it's a little hard to see. But I think under all this crap, I'm going to find some old parts. And one very loose tube. It's been a while since I looked at one of these. I don't remember there being a 6FD7 in there, so I wonder if that's the right tube. Let's see, is there a tube chart in here? Yeah, kind of hard to read. Let's see, in that position. Man, that's where the 6DR7 would go, that's what I thought. It's a vertical output tube, maybe this is compatible, I don't know. Curious. But otherwise, yeah, that looks like the original electrolytic there, although it's not attached, which is a little strange. This one's loose, and I can see his crud coming out of it, and there's nothing attached to this. So there's some strangeness. Fusible resistor, looks kind of corroded. I don't know, it's hard to say without cleaning this up more exactly what's what. So that's where I'm going to start. And if everything looks kind of okay, what I'm going to try doing is make sure I got all the right tubes in the right socket. And definitely want to replace that cap before even bothering to try the set. But what I want to do is a minimal amount of work and try powering this set up.